Hi everyone, Sid here in the car with another improv journal entry. I think this is going to be a quick one. Me and the gang did a set at Art Machine, which is a Tuesday night venue at TSC, or Theater St. Catherine. And honestly, it was, I think I just mentioned this, but this was a 10-minute set. And I would say that I wasn't happy with what we did at all, and I think that all five of us would agree that we weren't happy with what we ended up doing. However, me personally, I don't think it's our worst public outing. I think our worst one was at La Belle Improv, not the one I talked about yesterday, but the time before. I think that was our worst public outing, and even that, it was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't terrible. And last night was better. However, the thing that leapt out at me was the fact that, first of all, there weren't that many people there, and second of all, the people that were there, most of them, well, a lot of them anyway, already knew and liked us. So this is not what I would call a market audience at all. Market audience being when, you know, there's a good percentage of strangers who paid money to come see the show. I think that reactions from them are more trustworthy because, you know, they're less biased in your favor. So, oh, and also, when your audience is made up mainly of other improvisers, it could skew the reactions. It's sometimes they're laughing for different reasons that average Joe Schmo civilian not improviser wouldn't even be aware of. So all that to say, there weren't that many improvisers, but a good proportion of the people who were there already knew us and liked us. So the reason I went into that, and this is what was surprising to me, was the feedback that I got after we stepped on stage wasn't just good, it was really good. Like, there would be, oh my God, that was so great. And it was surprising to me, but it's also a reminder of how when you put yourself out there, the different reactions that you can get when you think what you're doing is shit and someone else thinks that same thing is brilliant. That was a nice reminder of that. And it got me thinking, like, my default position right now is for performance arts in general. If the artist doesn't like, let's just make him a man for our purposes. So if the artist doesn't like what he did and the audience likes what he did, the audience is right, and vice versa. So even though, like, it's true, but you can't rely on that, in the sense that if the audience fucking loves what you're doing, it doesn't mean you can't get better. And also, it doesn't mean that they liked what you did for reasons that you would agree with. So there's that entire exploration that can happen when you put yourself out there and see what kind of reactions you get. And before closing, I just want to mention, there's no point going into play-by-play, but I would say that two things that our troupe struggles with consistently is not editing fast enough. Our scenes can get too long sometimes, often actually. And two, getting too silly too quickly. And I think that last night was a good example of both. And the most ironic thing was we practiced 2 days ago on Monday, and we put a lot of emphasis on just being normal. It's not that being silly in improv is bad. I love being silly. However, it's really important to establish a solid base and just have, for the audience to care, they have to have a good understanding of what life was before the craziness happened. So if you start right away with crazy, you have that much more work to do. Case in point, after spending hours practicing together, putting the emphasis on being normal, one of the first lines in the first scene last night was, "This is the last monkey on the moon." Now, this also illustrates how great it is to take risks with people that you trust and who are there for you, because we made it work. And the counter move when you start the scene with crazy is to establish that crazy is normal. So what I liked was after that, within that same scene, there was already a vibe of, well, it's another day here on the moon, which gave us better footing to work off of. However, there was still precious seconds that were spent explaining, like, yes, we live on the moon now because we destroyed the Earth, and that kind of thing, which we could have spent even further deepening the relationship between the characters or the world or whatever. And another case in point, and this, like, I enjoyed taking the swing, because there's this thing called the game of the scene, and you know what, I won't set up too much premise, but basically in the world that we built, there was a clear pecking order where there was a school, and I was the principal of the school, Angela was the superintendent, and Will was the president of the moon. Now, for reasons I don't want to go into, I, as school principal, hired a monkey as the new school janitor, and they established that the superintendent would fire me and replace me with the monkey, give the monkey my job. So I do the scene like, oh my God, you're firing me and replacing me with the fucking monkey. And then Will tags me out and plays the president of the moon, firing the superintendent to replace her with, I forget what animal, but it was another animal. Now, me seeing this, I say, okay, we have a game going on. However, I wasn't sure how to heighten it. So I tag Angela out and I play an alien who's firing the president of the moon. And I knew I had to replace him with something. And I reached out, having no idea what I reached out for. And when I when I closed my hand and pulled back, what I got was that the aliens were firing the president of the moon and replacing it with a pile of sentient donkey dung. That was the best I got. However, I'm glad I took a swing at it, especially with no idea how I was going to heighten it. And B, again, the audience, from the feedback that I got, they didn't just like it, they really enjoyed it. So I think that is all. Do I want to add anything else? Taking risks with people you trust, making it work. And when you start the scene with crazy, the counter move is to establish this crazy as normal and see where you can go from there. And, again, had we, as much as we made it work, and as much as we have done worse, in my opinion, than what we did last night, having started the scene in a zoo, like if your scene partner is petting a monkey, establishing the scene as taking place in a zoo as opposed to on the moon might have helped avoid having a a pile of sentient monkey dung as the president of the moon, and might have been a beautiful pelican as, director of the zoo. That could have been interesting. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please let me know what you think of these videos. Leave the comments below. Please like it if you want to see more of these. My plan is to release these until basically May, and reevaluate from there based on the reactions that I get, because as I've said many times before, I'm going to record these anyway, so it's really just a question of if I publish these or not. So on that note, thank you very much. If you want more, please leave comments and share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That is always a huge encouragement, and you will find links to my social media below. And on that note, you take care. Yes, and